Hey everyone, I am sitting on my floor. I still don't have my tripod for my camera, and I am still trying to figure out all the settings. I'm shooting with it just with no picture profile right now, and I'm trying to see if I like that because Bo just moved my camera. I shot with a picture profile for my podcast, and I'm not sure if I really liked it. So I'm trying something new. I'm trying to just see what the camera puts out, and I'm just gonna see which one I like the best. I might try some different shots as I'm filming today, but I have some plant chores that I have to do. I have to feed. I'm doing like my plant food. I have like a food that I give my plants once a month. So I'm going to be doing some plant care, but I also wanted to do a voiceover, and I might sit down and finish talking if I don't finish my voiceover in the amount of time it takes me to do my plant chores. But I have a lot of thoughts that I wanted to talk about and get off of my chest, something that the direction I'm taking everything in, and just like my mindset lately, some things that I've been realizing, some things that I've been healing from, some toxic beliefs, some, just a lot of different things that I'm feeling so free from and feeling so good about, and I've been so scared to share, and I'll explain all of that later. So basically, I just wanted to take you all along my plant chores. Share some of my thoughts, some things that I'm learning and all of that kind of stuff. So maybe grab a cup of joe, grab a cup of coffee. I already had my coffee for today, so I'm trying to drink more water. But either way, stay hydrated, grab a drink of some sort, and let's hang out. Let's talk. Let's catch up, because I've got a lot of things I'd love to talk about. Okay, so basically today I wanted to sit and talk with you all about having compassion for yourself and really what it means to start loving yourself. I have been on this journey for a little while now. As some of you know, I have been going back to therapy. I went through pretty intensive EMDR therapy back in 2020 through 2021. Then I pretty much wrapped up a lot of things before my wedding. Had my wedding, went on my honeymoon, all those different types of things. And then I started. So basically what happens in EMDR therapy is you move what was stored in your emotional subconscious over to your logical thinking part of your brain. So, for example, if you have been attacked by a lion, that's a pretty traumatic event. That's a pretty traumatic thing to happen. Say you see a tree that's shaped like a lion. Basically, if it's stored in your emotional subconscious, if the lion attack is stored in your emotional subconscious, you're going to see a tree shaped like a lion and you are going to go into fight or flight. And you're going to think, oh my gosh, I'm being attacked. Your body's going to prepare to fight against a lion again, even though there's actually no threat. So basically what EMDR therapy does, it takes it from your emotional subconscious and puts it in your logical thinking so that you can be a little bit more emotionally mature about the situation and you can see it for what it is. So more logical thinking, for example. And you'll see that tree that's shaped like a lion. You'll know you're not in danger. You'll know that you're safe. You know that it's just a tree. It just looks like a lion, but you won't go into fight or flight, things like that. I ended up doing EMDR for a lot of different things in my past, in my childhood, just really me as a person, me being brought up into the world and becoming an individual. And what I didn't realize is that I went through the EMDR therapy and since everything was at a 10 from my entire life, going down to like a 4 or a 5 felt really good. But after a couple of months, I started to realize some things were still there. Some cobwebs were still needing to be cleaned up. So I started going back to therapy and a ton of different things happened. My entire life completely shifted. Some of you that know me in person know that I was really heavily involved in worship and on a worship team and serving a lot in church and different things like that. And for the past year, almost year and a half now, I have barely stepped foot into a church building, and I've been really finding who God is outside of the things that I learned being a believer. So this video is specifically because I feel like it's just going to help people. I feel like it's going to help someone out there that's maybe feeling a little bit alone, and I feel like it's going to give insight for a lot of different people that might see it. So I wanted to kind of share my experience. My self-love experience and my journey as of now. I'm still working on it. I'm still working through it. But something that I realized lately is that I have been not kind to myself for probably my entire life. Even when I became a believer and I started serving in church and started doing all of these things, I still had this level of hate for myself where I was constantly denying my needs and all these things. I used to do that before I became a believer, and then as soon as I became a believer, it didn't change. I continued to, not have my needs met. I continued to run myself thin. I continued to live in this continuous state of burnout. I was never being truly fulfilled, which is completely backwards. And this is especially when you become a believer. It's like the exact opposite of what's supposed to happen. You're supposed to be filled with the Holy Spirit and all of these different things. Not saying that I never was, not saying that I'm not now, but there's a choice that I kept filling with all of these things and all of these to-dos, and this is specifically me. These are things I placed on myself. So I'm not here placing blame or anything like that. Know that I'm speaking from my own experience, the things that I chose to do. So I was in this state of, I was very vulnerable when I became a believer. And I went from filling all of my voids with, trigger warning. This is going to be a little bit of a trigger warning. So things with substance abuse and self-harm, just so everyone knows, if you feel like you're going to be triggered, please do not watch this video. This is specifically my experience, but if you do decide to watch this video, I hope that it helps you and I hope that you feel seen and heard. And yeah, so basically what was happening is I was in a vulnerable state. I went from filling my voids and my emptiness and all of these different things with substances, whether it was cigarettes, weed, all these different types of things, or whether it was self-harming or different things like that. I was constantly trying to fill this emptiness, and I wanted to feel almost, it's like I felt too many things. I'm a big feeler, and it's like I felt too many things that I wanted to be numb. I needed to just kind of take the edge off of how much and how deep I was feeling with all of these substances. So as soon as I became a believer, I basically did the same exact thing, except with good things. So I would, serve and constantly deny myself and constantly all these different types of things. And it got to the point where, the truth will always come out. And I know for 100% fact that I was being genuine the entire time that I was serving and all this kind of thing, all this kind of stuff. But I wasn't being truly, my needs were not truly ever being met. And it's only going to take a matter of time for that to come to a crash landing. And I know that because when I was filling up my voids with substances and people and all these different types of things, it only took a matter of time before I crashed and had to find a new fix. And that just happened to be the church community. My new fix became the church and became good, positive things, but still never actually fulfilled me. And I never actually attacked what was going on deep down. So those of you that have been following along my journey, now that you know, catching up to speed, I haven't stepped foot in a church building maybe a handful of times in the past year, almost year and a half. And what I've learned during that time, I've been going back to therapy, and I'm not saying that staying away from church or anything like that. I'm not saying that my journey is the end all be all. It's the best way to do things. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is I have learned a lot of different things through this experience. And one of the things that I've learned is how to have my needs met, what boundaries to put up. And something that I realized is that when you're being an unhealthy version of yourself, if you're not aware of it, other people also won't be aware of it for the most part. So once I started realizing that I was not a very healthy version of myself, and we're going to be changing and evolving and growing our entire lives. But once I started realizing as I was going through therapy that I was not being a very authentic, truly authentic, I was still filling my voids. I was still trying to make sure I did everything for everyone else and I met their needs and, being selfless. And in a church environment, selflessness is praised, and selflessness is a really awesome thing. but there's also a balance. So being super selfish, think of everything as being on a spectrum. Being super selfish is not healthy. I mean, anyone that's super selfish, anyone knows like, wow, that's just absolutely insane. Anyone that's super selfless, it's not quite the same. You are actually praised more. You're looked at in a certain, like the world is just like, wow, you are so selfless. Like that is so kind, like all these different types of things. But what they don't realize is that it's just the opposite side of the spectrum, which is just as detrimental. So a lot of times we miss that there's balance in everything. So being super selfless, if I tried to do one thing for myself, I would look super selfish because I was so used to being so selfless. So I started moving this way on the spectrum, going towards selfishness, but not to be selfish, to be somewhat in the middle and balanced. So I started realizing that I was a unhealthy version of myself. And again, we're always going to be growing and changing. So it's not like I've reached my self-actualization or anything like that. But I did notice that I was not being completely authentic. I was not being totally genuine. I was not being, I was not okay. And I wasn't okay for a very long time. And it'll always come up. And I'm not sitting here because I want to take the fault for everything, because what I went through was very, very traumatizing, and it's part of the reason why I haven't stepped into a church building. It's not just for myself, it's because of the damage that was also done. It takes two people to tango, so I'm not sitting here, I'm not going to take all the blame for everything that happened. However, I am going to speak on what I did experience and what I know that I saw. So, like I said, I wasn't feeling like I was my healthiest. I was feeling, for the first time, like, oh, I just went from being super unhealthy with substances to being super unhealthy in a church building with all this stuff I'm serving and constantly not having my needs met. And that's praised in that environment. And I understand why, because I was in it. So I'm not sitting here trying to be on the outside or being judgmental or anything like that. But I am here to say that there's balance. There's 100% balance that can be found. When you are an unhealthy version of yourself and you're in an environment where they heavily, heavily rely on you being this unhealthy version of yourself, and you try to become healthy, and once again, no one was aware. I was barely aware that I was not my healthiest version of myself or a healthy version of myself. I was being relied on pretty heavily for a lot of different things, but it was this unhealthy version of myself. And of course, everyone wants, each other to be healthy deep down. It's like everyone's like, yeah, be healthy, go to therapy, do your thing. But once I actually started changing and once I actually started becoming the healthier version of myself, setting boundaries and learning how to say no, trying to care for myself a little bit more and show up for myself and have my needs met and not doing anything on E. I was running on E for so long. I was trying to fill up and finally not do things on empty. And when I started making those boundaries or saying no, it started to become a little inconvenient. I was no longer this like sacrificial, person that could serve and all these different types of things, but I was now a little bit of an inconvenience. I was kind of getting in the way of keeping things moving, keeping the train going. And I started noticing that, and I had little moments where I'd be like, okay, I'll just do it, it's fine. And I kept going back and forth. And it got to the point where a lot of very hurtful things happened, and a lot of stuff went down. And I was stripped from my voice. Everyone, I'm pretty sure majority of people think I just kind of disappeared on my own terms. And I do believe in God, and I do believe that what's meant for me will be mine, and what's not won't be. And nothing that's mine will be taken away. And it was in that moment, everything was being taken away. And it seemed like it was out of nowhere. There was a lot of miscommunication, different things like that. Absolutely out of nowhere, after all these years of showing up and doing all of the things that I've gotten done, just being taken away out of nowhere, everything I've done and worked for went back to dust. And it was very confusing. It was very much like, what is going on? But I had this peace that what's meant to be mine will be mine, and nothing that is mine can be taken away. So I viewed it in a way that it's like, okay, I know that something bigger is happening on behalf of me to, it's happening for me, not to me, which took me a while to get there. But it was very, very painful in the moment. And if all of those things wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't have seen how horribly I was treating myself. And it hasn't been up till, just recently that I realized how much I really haven't been loving myself. And of course I care about myself. Of course I'm like, show up for you and all these different types of things. But I never, ever in my life had felt this low. Not in a sense of like how I was before, trigger warning. There were a lot of like suicidal ideations and intrusive thoughts and things like that. I felt so low, but for the first time I wanted to live. And that's how I've kind of been feeling this whole time. It's like I finally feel free, and I feel like I'm finally working on myself and I just want to live, yet I feel completely paralyzed. And it's been such a tormenting process. And I'm sure people on the outside looking in, I have this like thing where it's like I'm constantly anxious because I feel like, what do people think about me? Because my voice was completely stripped away from me. I was muted. I never got to say my piece. I never got to explain my side. And I just felt like so many people were forming all of these opinions about me and thinking whatever they wanted to think about me. And it was really difficult. And even right now, like I'm sure some of those people are going to watch this video and have ideas about the way things went down or ideas about who I am as a person. And I think for a long time, it's been hard for me I've learned so much throughout this. And the only reason I give a backstory is because I think it's important to know where I'm coming from when I say these words and when I say what I've learned. But it's been so hard for me to share what I've learned throughout this entire process and just what I've learned in general about life and about myself. It's been hard to share because I just feel like I'm going to be judged. I feel like I'm going to say the wrong thing because since I was people-pleasing so much, everyone had a say in my life. They could say their opinion about me, or they could say what they think I should do, and I would do it. And I would become whatever they thought I should be, which is not healthy. But that's what I did. And so it's really difficult for me to post something like this without consulting someone and feeling like I'm going to be ridiculed for the words that I said, or maybe I didn't say it the right way, or maybe I hurt someone in the process, or different things like that. And it's like I'm still not living free, even though I've been gone for a year and I've been really on my own and finding who I am outside of all these different things. It's like I still have felt like I'm still somewhat being controlled in my own mind from past words that have been spoken, and I've had to break a lot of things off of me, all these lies and all of these different things. I've had to break them off of me and find my own truth, if that makes sense. And I have not been kind to myself. In a way, it was one of those I lost myself to find myself. But this is the first time that I completely lost myself in a good way. I lost everything that I was for all these other people to find who I was. Raw, burned up, broken pieces of me. But it was finally me, just me, with no one else's opinion, no one else's, input. I was just Lexi laying there. And when I found myself laying there, I had so much compassion on myself, and I was like, wow, like compassion in a way that it was just like, this is a mess. Like, this is an absolute mess. So I started picking up the pieces slowly by slowly, and I'm still picking up the pieces. And in my latest podcast, I talked about being diagnosed with depression and all these different types of things and how I viewed diagnoses differently, not giving me permission to be a certain way, but actually giving me a perspective on what I need to fight for. Now that I know it's labeled this, I know the symptoms, I now know how to fight against it. I can see when my body's lying to me. I know when my brain is trying to tell me I can't do something, and I can push through things like that. So basically, it's helped me see how to fight and how to become the version of myself that I really want to become. And this is my whole point of at least today's video that I really wanted to share. This was just a random thing that I felt on my heart, and I just thought that someone could, benefit from it. But the main thing I wanted to share is I had something happen recently, and it made me realize, when you're working on yourself so much and you don't realize the progress you've made until you're put into a situation where you have to choose yourself, you have to choose the healthy things that you've been learning all this time, and you're placed in that situation and you finally see like, oh my gosh, that was progress. I would not have done that a couple months ago. So I was recently in a situation like that where not necessarily I did the healthiest thing, but I saw myself differently. One of the things I do or I've done in the past, like when I'm hurt and the other person involved isn't saying anything, isn't willing to work on it, I have a hard time not having closure in those areas. And so instead of being like, wow, that happened, I feel like I always have to comprehend it. And that's not what you're supposed to do in a traumatic situation. Trauma is meant to be felt, not understood. You may not ever understand what or why something happened to you. But me, being me, I was trying to understand it. And so the only way I could understand it is if I was the crazy one. I must be absolutely insane, is what I kept telling myself. Like, wow, I must be crazy. The only way for me to comprehend what the heck just happened or why that happened is if I am insane and I'm the crazy one. And it's like I would take the blame for all of these different types of things because I needed to understand it. And that was the only way I could understand it, is if I was the one at fault. So I started to switch my focus and actually not place blame on the party that deserves it, not in like a hateful way, but it's like I'm able to see like, okay, I really didn't do anything wrong here. And that was crazy. That was very hurtful. And I need to move on from that. I need to accept the truth and the fact of what happened and now place boundaries and show up for myself so I don't get hurt like that again. And I was placed into a situation where that happened. I was deeply hurt. And at first I was so upset and I was like, wow, I must be crazy. Like I'm in the way. I'm in the way. I need to get out of the way. Like I was the problem. Like I needed to get out of the way. I needed to be removed because I was the problem. I was disrupting everyone's peace, everyone involved. I was the problem. And I ended up leaving the situation and I was like literally distraught. I don't remember the last time I felt this absolutely confused. I didn't know what just happened and I felt so absolutely unhealthy. And I started crying my eyes out of anger from what's happened in the past. That was one thing. But once all of these emotions surfaced and all of these irrational thoughts and all of these things surfaced as I left and I was driving home. But when I was finally able to have regained composure and think rationally about the situation, I started having compassion for myself. And what happened was long story short, I've had a lot of like different weight gain, which I know that's a sensitive topic for some people, but it's something that I feel like needs to be talked about. I had a lot of weight gain. Number one, I'm becoming a woman. Number two, I've been very, very depressed for like over a year. And it took a toll on me. I was eating my feelings and I was just not being kind to myself. I was not treating my body and fueling my body the way it deserves to be fueled. I was constantly just doing everything to self-sabotage after all of this stuff happened. And there's a lot of like religious trauma that I experienced throughout that. And I want to do more podcast episodes on my podcast about religious trauma and different beliefs and different things that caused me to feel and to live the way that I was living and to self-loathe and self-sabotage the way that I was doing and the track that I was on. And I'm seeing so many different things there. But for this specifically, I was in a super cute outfit. I was like feeling good about myself that day. I was finally getting out of my house. It's really hard to get out of my house. And I went out of my house and all of this happened where I was in people's way. I was disrupting their peace. I was the problem and I needed to remove myself and not be the problem anymore. So I started seeing myself and I was like, wow, like my heart was almost, I started having empathy and compassion for this like little inner child inside of me. I was seeing myself from an outside perspective and actually having compassion for myself. And a lot of times in those situations, I don't care if I'm hurt. I don't care how it makes me feel. Like, throw me in the trash for all I care. You know, do you want my heart? Do you want to rip it up and like throw it in the trash as well? Go ahead. Like I am a human mat. Walk all over me. And for the first time, I started feeling bad for myself, not in a no poor me, not in a pity party way, but in a way where I finally saw this precious human being treated poorly by friends. And I was like so devastated for myself, if that makes sense. And my cries and my tears for the anger and the hurt that I felt were quickly turned into tears for myself in a way that I was like, I saw myself like getting all cute and I saw myself all excited. I'm ready to put myself out there in the world. I'm ready to get out of my house, go hang out with some friends, only to be completely spit on. And it was in that moment that I actually started weeping for me. And I was like, wow, like that poor girl just wanting to finally, after a hard year, just wanting to finally put herself out into the world again, get in a cute outfit and go hang out with some old friends and just to be thrown out and hurt and spit on, basically, metaphorically, you know. And I've never felt compassion and empathy for myself like I did that day. Ever. That was the first time that I ever saw myself in that light. And I felt bad for that girl. Like, again, like I said, not in a no poor me way, not in a pity way, like I pitied her, but in a way that it's like, you deserve so much more, girl. Like, you deserve so much more. You don't deserve this. You don't deserve these friendships. You don't deserve people that are inconvenienced by you. You don't deserve people that are just going to walk all over you and don't care how you feel. You don't deserve people that are just going to use you. You don't deserve people that you're the problem and you need to get out of their way for their peace to be preserved. You matter. You actually matter. And I felt like I mattered in that moment. Not because anyone told me, not because anyone came to the rescue, not because I called anyone and had them fix me or put that responsibility on someone to fix me. It's because I've been doing the hard work. I've been showing up for myself. I've been going to therapy. I've been doing the hard work where everyone said I'm doing the wrong thing. When I left and I've just been completely alone. Everyone's been saying it's the wrong thing to do. I've had so many different opinions in my life on who I am and who I'm supposed to be. And I've just stuck to my gut. I've stuck to me. I chose me. I kept choosing me. And I have never done that in my life like I have recently. Ever. And it wasn't until I was placed in that situation where I finally saw how much I'm starting to care about myself, how much I'm starting to love myself, how much I'm starting to have empathy and compassion on this beautiful soul of mine, not in a vain way at all, not in a like I'm better than anyone. If anything, I'm humbled because of what I went through. And it's like, not, like I said, not in a vain way. It's like I am really doing the hard work. I'm so proud of myself. I have a little bit of extra skin on me, a little bit of extra love. I don't fit in any of my jeans right now, but I love the leggings that I put on. I can wear these sweatpants, and I just keep loving myself a little bit more and a little bit more every single day. Every single day. And I did not realize how much it was paying off until just recently. And it has motivated me to just keep going, keep choosing myself, keep doing the hard work, keep showing up for myself, because the more that I am filled, the more that I will overflow into the people in my life. And I have been able to have the friendships that I've developed during this season and during this hardship, the people that have stuck by my side and asked me how I've been and, not let me isolate, have just showed up at my house or just texted me or things like that. The people that have actually been there for me, it's surprising. And it's funny because this isn't to slight anyone or hurt the church building or whatever, because the church isn't a building. The church is people. And I have never felt more loved by the church, meaning the people, meaning humans existing in the world. I have never in my life felt more loved by such beautiful souls and beautiful humans than I have being outside of a building. And that's sad. And again, I'm not trying to come against the church per se, because I'm not. I'm not coming against the people. I am coming against systems and organizations and things like that. There are just different things that I personally feel that I'm not going to get into, because that's my opinion. That's my opinion, and it shouldn't matter, because every single one of us are going to be individuals. We're going to be unique. We're going to be different. We're going to think differently. We're going to have different beliefs, and that doesn't make us a part of the body of Christ. So, with all that being said, not to get into all of that stuff, I'm not here to preach at all. But I've never felt more loved than the people in my life right now, because I finally see what I'm worth. I finally see the friends that I deserve and that I'm worthy of. And it's been a beautiful process and a painful process. It's been both. It's been beautifully painful. And I'm starting to not really be able to see the difference, because when there's pain, I appreciate the beauty so much more. And it's just worth it. But anyway, I want to wrap this up so it's not a super, super long talk, but I did want to sit down and just talk with you all about some things, and I have so many more things that I want to say. If you want to hear more conversations like this, I definitely want to post more videos, but I also talk really deeply and in depth about topics like this over on my podcast. It's called Mindfully Minding My Business. It's on Spotify and Apple Podcast. On Spotify, there is the video version, and then I also post the video version on YouTube as well. So if you are interested in hearing more conversations like this, you can check out my podcast. But other than that, I'm just simply here to hopefully help someone feel heard and feel seen today, even if it just helps one person. That's exactly why I made this video. So I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you got something out of it, and I hope you find your worth, and I hope you find what you're looking for, the friendships and the connections in life, and just start loving yourself just a little bit every single day. It'll pay off. And have compassion and empathy for yourself and that little inner child, that little piece of you that you keep neglecting. Love her, love him, love that piece of you. But other than that, that's all I wanted to say. Again, I hope you enjoyed, but I hope you have a beautiful day. You are such a beautiful soul, and your life is worth living, and you matter. See you in the next one.